It's January 24th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the impeachment trial of President Yoon over his short-lived martial law declaration. Former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun downplayed allegations implicating Yoon's martial law order as he showed up as a witness for the president for Thursday's hearing. In the meantime, investigators passed a martial law investigation to the prosecution for indictment. South Korea and the U.S. will remain on the same page for North Korea's denuclearization. Seoul's top envoy to the U.S. vowed to make sure of this on Thursday, after U.S. President Donald Trump called the North a nuclear power earlier this week. At his first appearance on the international stage since his return to the White House, U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking to the World Economic Forum, once again warned businesses around the world he would slap tariffs on them if they don't make their products in the U.S. The fourth hearing of President Yoon took place on Thursday, where he was accompanied by a key figure into the December 3rd martial law order. That is ex-defense chief Kim Yong-hyun, who shielded the troubled leader as a witness. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Tensions ran high as President Yoon impeachment trial resumed, as former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun testified as the first witness, vehemently defending Yoon's martial law on December 3rd that shook the nation. The Constitutional Court on Thursday held the fourth trial hearing on Yoon's impeachment, which the president himself attended. The first of 10 witnesses approved by the court, Kim is one of the key figures implicated in planning and executing the martial law. Considered Yoon's right-hand man, Kim initially said he'd take responsibility for the chaos that ensued. His loyalty appeared intact. Kim at first refused to respond to the National Assembly's impeachment panel, prompting an abrupt break.
If I proceed with responding to the other side, there is a significant risk that the facts may be distorted. Therefore, I would like to now decline to take part in the witness questioning.
Questions fired by both the president's lawyers and the National Assembly. Much attention was on the planning and execution of martial law, as the National Assembly side says it disrupted the country's constitutional order and that a formal cabinet meeting was not held to legitimize it. First, regarding the legality of declaring martial law, the former defense minister said Yoon had kept to proper procedures of holding a cabinet meeting beforehand, saying that a copy of the martial law declaration was distributed to cabinet members. Also, Kim said he had composed a controversial note that the finance minister had received, ordering the preparation of a budget for an emergency legislative body, presumably to replace the elected National Assembly. This came after President Yoon initially said he could not remember whether he wrote the note, before recently denying that he had. Questions also focused on the martial law proclamation, which included a ban on political activities, one of the Assembly's grounds for impeaching Yoon. Kim claimed he typed up the document, but couldn't answer which word processor he used. As the president himself questioned his former minister, Yoon appeared to emphasize that he'd considered the martial law proclamation unrealistic and ineffective. The president also stated that his martial law had not failed, but ended quicker than expected, as he had ordered soldiers to withdraw once the National Assembly voted to lift the order. Through his testimony, Kim appeared to reinforce Yoon's position that martial law was declared to uphold the constitutional order, prompted by the opposition-led parliament's efforts to impeach incumbent officials, and sought effective governance and budget execution.
As the trial proceeds, the president plans to attend all future hearings scheduled till February 13th. This would allow him to directly question and challenge witnesses in the courtroom.
Meanwhile, the Constitutional Court says it has acquired investigation transcripts from individuals involved in the martial law incident. It has also secured classified documents related to the National Election Commission and agreed to call in an intelligence official related to the matter as a witness to the trial. This suggests the court will examine claims from Yoon's side that alleged election fraud was a major reason for declaring martial law. The Assembly's panel has objected to including election fraud suspicion in the trial.
Recklessly asserting baseless theories of election fraud appears to be an attempt to delay the proceedings and undermine trust in the electoral system. Such actions should be appropriately restrained.
The fifth hearing will be held after the Lunar New Year holiday on February 4th with 3 witnesses to testify. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
An investigation into President Yoon's martial law order is still ongoing, except the case will now be under the prosecutors, not the investigators. We have our Choi Min-jung out at the prosecution's office in central Seoul. Hello there, Min-jung.
Hi, Dami.
So, Min-jung, the prosecutors will now handle the investigation. Are you spotting anything at the site this morning?
Tammy, it's a little past 10 a.m. here at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office, and unlike what we've been seeing at the Seoul Detention Center and the CIO, it's still rather quiet with not many people around at the moment. Now, regarding the investigation, the prosecution does not have much time with a detention deadline approaching, which could be as early as the 26th of January. So the investigation team may request to extend President Yoon's detention as early as today. And if approved, that would mean he could be held until the 4th, 5th, or 6th of February, giving more time for the prosecutors to investigate. Under such a plan, the prosecution is expected to make every effort to interrogate President Yoon as much as possible. They have also set a plan to continue the investigation throughout the weekend, possibly at the Seoul Detention Center where Yoon is currently being held, and even during the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday.
Min-jung, and the point of this whole case transfer is so that President Yoon complies with the investigation. How is Yoon's side taking this handover?
Right. The question is whether Yoon will respond to the prosecution's investigation. President Yoon's legal team said nothing has been decided yet, but did urge the prosecution to comply with proper legal procedures, unlike what they call the illegal actions of the CIO. Just to give you a brief background, the prosecution's special investigation team took back the case yesterday after the anti-corruption agency formally requested that the prosecution take over the investigation. The case was handed over earlier than planned due to President Yoon's refusal to cooperate with the CIO. The CIO had faced backlash as the investigation continued to hit a stalemate. Other than on the day of his arrest, when he remained silent in front of his investigators, Yoon refused to appear for further questioning, citing health and security concerns. The CIO also faced repeated interference from the Presidential Security Service in its attempts to seize evidence.
Min-jung, last but not least, one of the men arrested for the attack against Seoul Western District Court last weekend turned out to be a missionary. He's been arrested as of Thursday, right?
That's right, Dami. A man in his 40s, identified as Mr. E, was arrested after being accused of storming into the court last Sunday after President Yoon was issued an arrest warrant. So as of today, a total of 59 people, including E, have been arrested in connection with the riot. And earlier, the court issued arrest warrants for 58 individuals, 44 for storming the court and causing property damage, and 10 for blocking a vehicle carrying prosecutors and investigators from the CIO. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more on our later newscast. Back to you, Dami.
Alrighty, Min-jung, thank you for your report. So the investigation of President Yoon's martial law order is now in the hands of prosecutors. Will things speed up for the better? We are joined by Professor Song Se-ryun this morning. Good to have you back with us, Professor Song.
Good morning.
So as our Choi Min-jung reported, the transfer of the case to the prosecution came earlier than expected. Does it mean the investigators have given up on Yoon?
Well, the CIO does not have the prosecutorial power, so it was not the matter of if. It's a question of when the case was referred. I think yes, the referring happened earlier than expected. Probably reflects the fact that the CIO was not really successful in questioning Yoon. They had only one occasion to question him, but Yoon was not really cooperative. They took the issue of the investigative jurisdiction of the CIO. So I think that this move is a strategic one for CIO because of their failure to advance the case too much. I think that the prosecutor's office have probably a better chance of questioning President Yoon because they have the power to conduct a follow-up investigation and related incidents investigation.
That is probably why the investigators decided to hand over the case to the prosecutors. Now, that the case is now under the prosecution, that what role can the CIO play in the investigation following the transfer? I mean, to what extent can they take part?
Well, once the case is referred to the prosecution for the prosecution, the CIO's role is limited, but not the end of it, probably, because the prosecutor's office could see that there is a gap in the investigation and bring back the CIO for further investigation. Of course, they can conduct it by themselves, but in terms of the investigation, CIO still can claim the investigative jurisdiction. But CIO can help in other ways because they can continue the investigation of other individuals, other incidents, so that the case will be built more stronger way for the prosecutor's effort to prosecute the case.
Well, I'm sure the prosecutors are putting their heads together to make sure that the investigation under them goes as successfully as possible. Now, the question is, how do you think the prosecution will approach questioning Yoon? I mean, what's the best option for the prosecutors?
Well, that is a good question. Remember, President Yoon used to be the prosecutor general, so they're investigating and prosecuting the boss.
Right.
There are two ways. I think that they can. The prosecutor's office could a little bit bend over backwards to show that they are capable of prosecuting this case, even with the history of the President Yoon before. I think that they can go for the prosecution of other individuals, build up the case, and help making the prosecution of Yoon more a stronger one. But I think that the interest is to see what kind of approach that the prosecutor's office has. And we'll probably know after the first meeting, first questioning of prosecutors, see if that goes any effectively than the CIO.
Then having the investigation passed to the prosecution, is this something that Yoon and his legal team pursued, do you think? I mean, is Yoon better off now that the prosecutors are carrying out the investigation, or not really? What do you think?
Well, the case was supposed to be referred to the prosecutor's office anyway, so I don't think it was they didn't have any clear preferences at this point. But regardless, I think the defense team, the President Yoon side, the strategy is to focus on the impeachment trial. Probably if they can get the presidency back to him, that will be a better occasion to deal with the insurrection case from the stance of a stronger situation. So I think that the fact that the president is attending all the sessions with the Constitutional Court probably shows that by making a successful political argument about getting the presidency back probably will be better for the insurrection trial anyway. So I think the defense team, as we have seen, has thrown all the wrenches in the works to delay the proceedings, so probably that reflects their strategy.
Well, the prosecutors might have a higher chance of conducting the investigation because the CIO's investigation was not so fruitful. Then how much, to what extent do you think Yoon's side will actually cooperate with the prosecution? To what extent?
Well, we just talked about the strategy. I think that the CIO's jurisdiction that they had questioned. Probably that's not there anymore. So I think the chances are that they are more cooperative with the prosecutor's office. But I think it all depends on their strategies. The defense team are allowed to make any plausible arguments for the defense, and their focus is to keep the president out of jail, out of a situation where he loses his presidency. So that's why we've seen a lot of delays, because delays are beneficial in many ways for insurrection trial, because they want to focus on the constitutional court side of it. In the constitutional court side of it, if the case is delayed until April, we have another difficulties of losing a couple of justices in the constitutional court. So I think that at this point, the focus from the President Yoon side is not to get to the truth, but the whole focus is on defense of the charges that he has, constitutional court and the insurrection charges. So if the delay is beneficial to that end, probably we'll see more of that.
Professor Song, thank you so much for joining with us this morning. We appreciate your time and your insight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this week described North Korea as a nuclear power, sparking concerns of a change in Washington's North Korea policy. Seoul's top envoy to the U.S. tamed those worries by vowing to ensure that Seoul and Washington will maintain the goal of North Korea's denuclearization. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
South Korea's ambassador to the United States, Cho Hyun-dong, said Thursday that Seoul and Washington will maintain the goal of North Korea's denuclearization in the new Donald Trump administration. In a monthly press meeting, Seoul's top envoy to Washington emphasized South Korea's focus on reinforcing policy coordination with the Trump administration. In order to remain on the same page on North Korean nuclear policy, Cho said the South Korean government will strengthen its coordination with the U.S., especially given the North's participation in the war in Ukraine. The ambassador also stressed Seoul's priority of strengthening the credibility of the U.S.'s extended deterrence commitment. This includes the mobilization of the full range of its military capabilities, including nuclear weapons, in order to defend South Korea. Cho added that Seoul will continue to ensure the combined South Korea-U.S. defense posture while maintaining the Seoul-Washington-Tokyo trilateral cooperation. His comments come amid growing concerns that the U.S. may be changing its policy on North Korea's nuclear program. On the day of his inauguration on Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump described North Korea as a nuclear power. Also, Trump's defense chief nominee Pete Hegseth used the same term to describe the regime. U.S. officials have long refrained from using such terms, as it could be seen as Washington's recognition of North Korea's nuclear weapons program. However, the term is different from the nuclear weapon states often used to describe countries like the U.S., UK, France, Russia, and China. They're officially recognized as countries that possess nuclear weapons in the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Speaking at his first major global address, U.S. President Donald Trump renewed his economic agenda, urging global companies to manufacture in his country, the U.S. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth.
U.S. President Donald Trump emphasized his stance on tariffs once again in front of the global elite at the annual World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, as he followed up his push to bring manufacturing into the U.S. with a threat to impose levies for foreign goods.
But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff.
Speaking in a video call on Thursday at his first major appearance since his inauguration earlier this week, Trump went on to describe how these tariffs will add up to trillions of dollars to strengthen the U.S. economy. This follows an earlier announcement that he plans to impose tariffs of 25% on Mexico and Canada starting February, alongside a 10% tariff for China. During the rest of his 45-minute speech, he went on to lay out more of his vision for the U.S. economy, which includes lowering the corporate tax to 15% from the current 21%, lowering energy costs by pressuring OPEC, and lowering interest rates in turn. And in a panel discussion following his speech, he addressed the European Union for its substantial trade imbalance with the United States and condemned their regulatory actions against American tech giants such as Apple, Google, and Facebook. His comments spurred a chain of reactions. Oil prices fell, the greenback showed fluctuations, and U.S. stocks rose. It also inspired commentary from attendees, who called for a measured response to Trump's tariff policies, cautioning against hasty retaliatory actions. The Director General of the World Trade Organization called for careful analysis to examine the economic impact to gauge whether they are excessive, and warned that retaliatory tariffs can have disastrous effects on the global economy. The European Union's Economic Commissioner echoed this sentiment, while some attendees showed a more nuanced understanding of Trump's approach to tariffs by viewing it as a bargaining tool. Trump also advocated for a reduction in nuclear arms and urged for global cooperation at the forum, stating that he had discussed the matter with Russian President Vladimir Putin prior to the 2020 U.S. presidential election. He revealed that Putin had been receptive to the idea of nuclear disarmament and that China would have joined the initiative, warning that Beijing is rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal and could catch up with the U.S. in a few years. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
The proportion of renewable energy in total electricity production in the European Union reached an all-time high last year. According to a London-based think tank Amber on Thursday, renewable energy production, including solar, wind, and hydropower last year in the European bloc, reached 1,300 terawatt-hours, accounting for 47.4% of the total electricity production. Now, the figure is an increase of 7.6% from the previous year. Meanwhile, the proportion of fossil fuels such as coal and gas used in EU electricity production stood at 28.9%. That's the lowest in 40 years.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in the U.S. on Thursday, District Judge John Coffiner in Seattle put a 2-week temporary halt on President Donald Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional. Trump's order sought to deny citizenship to children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents. The order challenges the 14th Amendment, which grants citizenship to anyone born in America, with a few minor exceptions. 22 states and several immigrant right groups are challenging Trump's executive order, arguing that it would strip many individuals of their right to citizenship. The Justice Department plans to appeal Judge Coffiner's decision, asserting that the order correctly interprets the Constitution. The case, which represents an early setback for the Trump administration's immigration agenda, could potentially end up at the Supreme Court for a final decision. Also in the U.S., Purdue Pharma and its owners, the Sackler family, on Thursday agreed to a $7.4 billion settlement to resolve numerous lawsuits alleging their role in the U.S. opioid crisis through the marketing of their product OyContin. Under the settlement terms, the Sacklers will pay $6.5 billion over 15 years and give up their ownership of Purdue Pharma. An additional $900 million will come from Purdue itself. The agreement follows the U.S. Supreme Court's rejection of a $6 billion settlement that would have granted the Sacklers immunity from future civil lawsuits. The new settlement does not provide such immunity. The OyContin crisis led to hundreds of thousands of deaths and addictions in the U.S. since the drug's release in 1996. The Sackler family continues to deny any wrongdoing. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning announced on Thursday that recent tests of seawater samples collected near Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant revealed no abnormalities. The first independent test of samples since October 2024 was conducted as part of an agreement between China and Japan, following stakeholders to perform independent sampling and monitoring during the framework of the International Atomic Energy Agency. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson noted the limits of the significance of a single test result, and China has not yet hinted at lifting its ban on Japanese seafood imports, which was imposed in August 2023. Finally, to Australia, where Sydney's Royal Botanic Gardens saw the blooming of a corpse flower, or Patricia, for the first time in 15 years on Thursday. The rare flower, which is native to Sumatra, Indonesia, is known for its pungent odor, often compared to rotting flesh. The occasion attracted over 20,000 visitors, as the flower's bloom is a significant event due to its rarity and brief 24-hour lifespan. Visitors endured lines exceeding 2 hours to witness the rare spectacle, and some described the scent as being like a dead animal.
Yesterday's improved air quality was much appreciated. We should have normal air quality today, except for some of the central regions, including here in Seoul, with morning dust. Then a mix of snow and rain is in the forecast for East Coast regions, which should help to ease the dryness in the air. Mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province, however, will see heavier snowfall of up to 15 centimeters into Saturday. But early spring warmth continues this afternoon with a high of 9 degrees in the capital, Daegu and Gwangju at 12 degrees. Under sunny skies expected in most parts. Now, traffic has been much heavier this week. In Korea, it's common that before a holiday, people visit their business partners and clients to hand out gifts, exchange gifts, and wish them a Happy New Year. Warmer temperatures continue over the weekend, but those traveling on the East Coast need to drive with care. And there's nationwide wintry precipitation in the forecast early next week, and that will bring freezing air back to the country over Seollal holiday week. So please plan accordingly for travel.
That wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. A new day at Arirang will be back next Friday after the Lunar New Year Seollal holidays. Thanks for watching.